stories. Okay, so this one is called A Man Walked In While I Was Having a Bath. A long time ago, when I was 5, I was taking a bath with my mom and I saw some dude with red clothes with a orange cap on, about 6 feet tall and skinny as hell with black eyes, walk in. My father lives in another household. I remember asking and saying, "Who's that?" to my mom. I turned my head and my mom said, "No one." I described who he was, and as I turned my head to look at him, he was directly in my face. I screamed, and after blinking, he was gone. After that bath, my mom walked into the bathroom at night only to see in the reflection right behind her the same guy with the same description. I know it isn't the best story, but I was 5 and I was silly and can't remember all of it that well. The house was fully intact, closed up, locked up before it. And this was from the user Jolt6561. I mean, that's kind of creepy, right? The fact that, like, they were young, they thought they might have seen someone, and then their mom saw it too. That is funny. Let's see. Here's another one. Okay, this one's called Footsteps on the Devil's Night. When I was 14, I decided to stay at night at my best friend's house. It was, you guessed it, Devil's Night. And the evening was almost over. Daylight hadn't struck yet, but it was time to get everybody up for school. My best friend and I hurried to wake up all of her 9 or so siblings. Once everybody was ready, we huddled in the living room. The lights were off with the exception of the kitchen light, spilling through the doorway. We'd scroll our phones while we were entertaining one of her siblings' concerns about the zombie apocalypse, and each of us had fun telling our ideas of what we could do in a zombie-infested version of our time. This was fine for a while, but I got bored and had another idea. I was always a fan of scary stories, and I thought it would be funny to joke around to tell ghost stories to scare the kids until the time came for us to go and wait for the bus stop. Outside in the dark, I was a mean kid, but I digress. I told a few stories, mostly they were made up, but when I finished, a silence came over the room. That's when we heard it, the sound of footsteps above us. No child in the home could have possibly made their way onto the roof area, nor would they have wanted it to in the first place. And as far as anybody knew, all that was up there were tools left by the older brother who'd moved out and visited once in a while to make house repairs. He has strategically left his tools in a few boxes in the roof to keep the kids from messing with them, and he was also the only one who actually knew how to get up there. Yet we heard all of these footsteps as they danced above us in this eerie silence. They were light and playful, but something felt really oddly sinister about them. Too creepy and calculated to be an animal too. And too human, yet not human simultaneously, if you get my drift. Maybe it was the way they sped up, seemingly stepping into the shape of a circle. Big emphasis on that. The way the steps sounded as they went on sound so distinct, and they went around and around and around for almost a whole minute. All of us stayed quiet, processing the strange occurrence. Then we started to freak out, of course. With all siblings present and no way for any stranger to get into the roof without instructions, as per the absent brother, we are still left to this day with no explanation of what could have been on that roof. Ooh, that is creepy. I think anytime you hear anything on the roof, it's always eerie, right? Like, I just think that by nature, it's just scary, but that's just me. Thank you for the likes. So I just went to Costco and I got myself some dried mango. Yes, Gigi is behind me. And hello. These are so addicting. I'm sorry. I just need to take a moment to enjoy these. Also, I feel like there's something in my eye. I don't know. Yeah, it's like a coin bank. It's like I got the GG coin bank, and I'm like, well, I never really carry cash on me everywhere. I don't know anyone who does, but if you do, you're a rare person, because I don't ever carry cash on me. But I bought it because it's GG, and I barely see any GG stuff anymore. Okay. Okay. I mean, your dad. Yeah, I feel like that might be like a generational thing, you know what I mean? Like, some people have coins, some people don't. I don't know. Oh, God. I know my pants are like not matching with my sweater right now. I'm like wearing Christmas colors. Okay. So this one is called Ghost I Would Communicate With in My Old House. And this is the user A50P Head. When I was younger, about 4 to 5, I would talk to ghosts. I was only told this by my parents recently. They told me that I would always talk to a man that stood in front of the bedroom window, and when asked who I was talking to, I would reply with George. Obviously, I was only 4 or 5 at the time. I have no memory of what I would be talking to or who I'd be talking to. But we lived next to an old man called Mr. Todd, who my parents were very close to. My mom ended up asking who lived in the house before us, and surely enough, he replied with George. When my mom asked if he has anything to do with the bedroom window, as that's where I would always talk to him, Mr. Todd said that he would always stand at the window just looking out of it, and that's how he would spend most of his days. I've been told that I was a very weird child growing up, and that the story isn't the only ghost I have. As my parents describe it, I would always talk to a man on top of the wardrobe. Unfortunately, I haven't been told much about this one, as it's always overshadowed by the George story. I would also go on about having a past life and how I would bring up my other family. I have a feeling that I have a past life in that time frame of World War I or World War II. My reasoning is that my older brother, who is 7 years old, told me that one day I started singing an old war song from which neither my parents or brother had ever heard before. Being a believer of past lives, I find it super fascinating, as I've had my own experience of it, yet frustrating that I was so young that my memory is all limited. Thank you all for reading. Oh, that one sent me chills. The past life. See, I always find it so fascinating when children talk about past lives. You know what I mean? Like, I think there was a few of, like, there was one that I read about this child knowing all about like this type of like aircraft, and that he was like a pilot in his past life, and just really interesting stuff. And like neither of the parents were in the military or anything like that. So I find that stuff so cool. So yeah, like the whole George story, that's another thing too. It's like, how would he have known about George? You know, like how would a 4 or 5-year-old know about this old man that lived there previously and know all about George? You know, I don't know. That's just me, you know. But yeah, I mean, if you guys have ever any past lives, feel free to like let me know. People have been like emailing me or like writing to me on Instagram, so always fun to see those, read those. The other thing too, I'll kind of announce this periodically throughout the live, but all of my lives that I do on TikTok, I download them and then I repost them on YouTube. So for whatever reason, if you like me reading these random Reddit or scary stories and you can't always be in my live, yeah, you can check them out on my YouTube. So I'll be posting them there. And I'm gonna give that a upvote because I liked it. That was really good. Okay, Black Eyes Story. Okay. All right, so this one is called Black Eyes Story, and the user is the WitchyChik. So when I was around 6 or 7 years old, I was playing in my backyard. By the way, the hill I lived on was apparently an Indian. Oh gosh, I hate saying Indian. By the way, the hill I lived on was apparently an indigenous burial ground. I had a dinosaur set and was playing with them on my swing set. It was almost dark, and I remember looking up on my grandmother's porch. It was a wraparound at the time, and on the other side, I saw this figure. It had a white face, black hollow eyes, and had black hair. Ooh, my bag just got knocked over. That's weird. So weird, my bag. No, Yoshi, no. Dang, that was weird. No, do not lick or eat my mangoes. I think it might be like bad for you. Hopefully, no. Let's see where I can put them. Maybe like right here. Sorry. Thank you. My dog almost ate like the dried mango. I know. I'm like, no, Yoshi. Okay. That's my dog's name. All right. So it had a white face, black hollow eyes, and it had black hair. It slowly just bent over far enough so I could see it. Me being young and thought possibly that it was my grandmother because she had black hair. I ran up to the house and went inside to her bedroom, and she was just laying on the bed watching TV, telling me she had not been outside at all. I have a lot more stories about the land I grew up on. I almost all of that lived and lives there. Wait, what? Almost all that lived and lives are my family. We've all experienced weird things, and that was the spookiest story that popped up in my head when I saw this. It gives me the goosebumps. Okay, that gives you the goosebumps too. Like, imagine thinking you're seeing your grandmother and it's not. Couldn't be me. Grandmas are kind of scary. I did not have like the best relationship with my grandmother. I really didn't. I don't know. It's interesting because so I was really close to my grandfather on my mom's side of the family. And on my dad's side, it's interesting because like when I was born, I had lost one grandparent on each side. So my grandfather on my dad's side of the family, my biological grandfather passed away well before I even met him. And I think my dad was like maybe like 3. And my grandmother remarried, had another partner. So I have like uncles and stuff, but they're from like a different biological dad. So it's a really interesting dynamic. And then on my mom's side, my grandmother passed away before I was born. So I've already never really had like a set of grandparents. And my grandmother on my dad's side, she was just very like stern and stoic towards me. Like she wasn't really nice to me, at least. What is up with this little hair thing? See, I don't know. I've been getting adjusted to these bangs again. Anyway, so I don't know. She was just always not very nice. And it sucks because like when my husband and I were getting ready to announce our engagement, the day that we got engaged was like the day that my grandmother passed away. So it was just really interesting. But anyway, I know that's like kind of out there, but yeah. All right, let's see. What else do we have here? I'm going to change the ambient sound to something else. I think this is the one I always use. It's just like when I upload them. There we go. Okay. So this one is from Maos, MAOS_KG. And it's titled Ghost, Paranormal, or UFO. Share an experience I had when I was in my late teens, early 20s. I'm going to try and keep it short. but I'm not sure if it's connected with previous paranormal activity I experienced when I was a child in my parents' first home, which was definitely haunted, and sure enough, our second home was haunted as well. The second home is where I experienced the most activity and has caused me to go years with difficulty sleeping, which led to a bunch of other problems. However, one night I had one of the craziest experiences, but I was never able to really determine what it was. And at one point I believed it was astral projection. However, after watching some documentaries in recent months, it felt more like a UFO abduction or even something demonic. But what I do remember from that night was getting home late and I just went crashing into my bed and to get some sleep. I wasn't really tired. I wasn't tired mentally, but I was physically exhausted from work and spending the rest of my evening night hanging out with friends. So in my attempt to fall asleep, I heard a piercing white noise that got louder and louder by the second. And the next thing I know, I'm above my bed, entirely awake and aware of my surroundings and able to see myself laying down in bed. I also felt completely paralyzed, and the white noise kept getting louder and louder, that it felt like the whole room was shaking, and all of a sudden there's a beam of white light coming through my ceiling and lifting me up. And from the corner of my room, I can make out these black shadow figures coming out closer to me and making me feel surrounded. Oof, that gave me chills. I remember being terrified and screaming at the top of my voice for help, but no matter how loud I screamed, it didn't matter. It was like the white noise was just blocking my sounds for help. I kept screaming, and eventually I just remember waking up extremely terrified. I know most people will say I'm crazy or it was just a nightmare, but I have had a lot more nightmares and this was definitely not one of them. I wanted to see if anyone else had a very similar experience and what they believe it to be. Ooh! Personally, I think that sounds more like an abduction, but you never know. You never know. I think that I've read some UFO abduction stories, and I don't know. One of the things that I talk about, because I talk about cryptids, paranormal stuff, UFO stuff, if I go down the rabbit hole on that gives me the heebie-jeebies. UFO stuff to me is so terrifying. And the one that really terrified me the most was when I was watching Unsolved Mysteries. When I was a kid, there was this one episode on Unsolved Mysteries, and it was about, I think, 3 guys. They went camping out in the woods, and they, I think they were setting up the tent and everything. But the point of the matter is that I think it was either 3 or 5 guys. They all saw the same flying saucer. It abducted them. They explained the same sensations and everything. What is that movie? The one with the... Okay, I know which one you're talking about. The crows hitting the window, but I never remember the title of that movie. I don't remember, but I know what you're talking about because I embarrassed myself in the movie theater. Okay, so let me read the thread because I think since they're asking openly, it has to be black. Well, if we remember, we'll have to let each other know. So this is available leg 6171 said, I had a similar thing happen to me years ago. Let me lower it down. I was visiting an old tiny village in the center of France. I was staying had been a nunnery, very old building. When I lay down to sleep, I started levitating above my body. I was unable to move, and I noticed my body was moving higher and higher towards the white light. I was struggling to move or yell for help, and finally the person next to me moved and touched my arm, and I snapped back into my body. It was a very terrifying feeling. I thought it was something paranormal having to do with the age of the village, but there's more to it. It's just, I don't know. Okay. And then the original post person said, the home I lived in was over 100 years old. I haven't had the experience ever again. Oh my God, so there's a connection with old buildings. It's the Dark Skies. Okay, there we go. Dark Skies. Let me pull this up. Because I don't remember. My memory has been so bad lately. Dark Skies. Thank you for that. I have to bookmark this. Okay, so this is another one, okay? This one's from Janet Snake Juice 1313. Good, yes, I know, right? Like when you think you're about to forget it, it just like pops out of nowhere. Okay, so it says, first off, I want to say that I'm sorry that you've gone through all these experiences. I had a very haunted childhood myself, and sleeping was a big issue for myself as well. I have all kinds of weird OCD and anxiety about it now due to these events. I too have seen a UFO, and let's just say it doesn't act like any physical object on this earth, breaking the laws of physics with its movements. With that said, I personally don't believe that any UFO abduction is anything but a demonic manifestation. There was an interesting study done by a man whose name I forgot. He was a secular figure, a genius hired by the White House to determine what abduction scenarios were. He determined, based on the data and situations given, that these are not extraterrestrial physical creatures, but interdimensional entities who are malevolent. And considering they stink of sulfur, it's not hard to determine they're most likely demons or demonic creatures of some kind. Oh my God, my mind blown. Oh, thank you for the roses. I don't know if you're religious, and I don't mean to offend you, but I can only offer what I know worked for me. I was an occultist for a very long time, but once I became Christian, all the demonic activity in my life basically stopped. The only advice I can offer is to call... Okay, they're starting to get all, like, religious on them. Anyway, so there's that, which is interesting, right? I think I have heard the theory of UFOs or, like, extraterrestrials or aliens being more of, like, a interdimensional being rather than like a physical being, which I think that is really interesting. And also like the connection of sulfur, because I have heard people in the past talk about I have heard of people talk about how both demons and aliens smell sulfur, which is so fascinating. Again, we'll never know. This is all just speculation. We'll never know. Sorry, I'm not sure if I said thank you for the rose, but thank you for the roses. That was very kind of you. Okay. Okay, that's the end of the comment thread for that. That was creepy. Let me just upvote it because that way I know I read it. All right, so this one is from Big Papi 6673. It's called Ghosts Causing Alarm to Go Off in School. So this morning at 1 o'clock, myself and my friends were out and about exploring like the young adventurous teens we were. We decided to stop by the public school and get a drink of water from the water fountain. As we went by the performance hall, myself and my friends, one of my friends saw a slim, tall figure run behind a black curtain. We went around the back to find the door wide open with an entrance to where the figure had run to. Once we got in, we looked around only for the alarm to be triggered. We bolted out fast because of how scared we were. We are so confused as to why the alarm didn't get triggered for the figure in there and why someone was in the school alone. Like, why would there be someone alone? Oh no, call on Casper. Watch Casper. You break out in hives? Interesting. I'm sure there's like an allergy, right? I don't know. So I just had a memory unlock reading the story about like the black figure in the curtain. So this bugs me. The reason why I tell this story is because it bugs me so much because it's so cliche that I did not get a damn, like the picture just like disappeared. Okay. I swear on my life, I swear to God. So back in like 2007, I was visiting out here in LA. My sister and I and my niece had gone to the Queen Mary. So if you're not familiar with the Queen Mary, it's like this haunted ship here in Long Beach. It's also just like a historic ship that you can do a tour or whatnot. I think it's closed right now for renovations. But It is like back when like they were really pushing the whole digital camera thing, because I grew up in an era where there was like the film cameras and all that jazz. And so here we are. I got my first like digital camera, and here it was taking a bunch of pictures. I had taken pictures of me like going to the skating rink, and then finally we got to go to the Queen Mary's. So my sister didn't have enough money to buy us tickets to do like the tour, but at the time you can go up to like the main lobby. They have like gift shops. You can go out to like the dock and look out into the ocean. So anyway, they used to have this book also, which I went back, I think about 2 years ago. No, 2019. They no longer have this book, but they used to have a book of all of the people that have ever boarded the ship. And my maiden name is like a really rare last name. I think like less than 30,000 people have that last name. And so I was like taking a look at this book. You can like flip the pages to like a little glass thing. And like this door opens. And it's like one of the banquet halls, I think, that they have like a little like dance floor, or like if you rent out the space, you can do like a dance, weddings, whatever. So my niece like bolts in there. She's like, I think at the time 7 or 8 or something like that. But she like bolts into the door. I'm like, Alexis. I like go after her. And there's like this, the way it is now is like dim lighting. And all there is like a grandfather clock in there. I think they probably were having it for whatever reason. But it was an empty room, the stage, the curtains, this clock. So here I'm like taking pictures of her running around, like playing around with my camera. And in the camera, I know, right? I swear, like that's what I'm telling you. Like, it's just memory unlocked, Stranger Things, right? Anyway, so I take a picture, and there's a shadow of a man standing by the grandfather clock. And it creeped me out so much. So like I fly back to Minnesota, because at the time I was living in Minnesota. My sisters had stayed in LA. And I'm like telling my friends about it, and I'm like getting so excited to show them this image. So, you know, I'm uploading these images on the computer, and I'm like literally telling them about like what I gathered. And I'm like showing like the screen on like the camera. I don't have my camera right now with me to show you, but you know what I'm talking about, like the little like preview window. And as we upload it to the computer, it's gone. The image is gone. Like it just got corrupted, and like the ghost did not appear in any of the other images. I don't know what the heck happened. I cannot make this up. Like, I swear on my life, it happened. And I know some people that don't believe in that stuff. They'd be like, oh, the picture miraculously, coincidentally got corrupted. It's like, yeah, unfortunately, yeah. Yeah, like, it bothers me. That's why I don't really tell that story, because then people would be like, oh, blah, 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 blah. But I mean, it did happen. And I remember like telling my best friend at the time, my neighbor, we all ran to the house, like all excited to see it on the computer, and it was gone. Like, ugh. And they were my witness. Like, I'm sure I don't know if they remember that now, but it was the craziest thing ever. I don't know, but it makes me mad because like I had a picture. I remember seeing it and thinking to myself, and again, this is like, it's not like you can grab an iPhone and take a picture of the screen like that. You know what I mean? It was a lot more difficult back then. And I had a really old computer. My mom took a picture of Mandy, the haunted doll, and one of the pictures were glitched or something. Yeah, see, like I feel like that stuff is so interesting. We did for around Halloween, my husband and I went to a friend's house and we did a seance, and we used like the night vision mode camera. And the file got corrupted. It wouldn't work. And I had to like MacGyver it and like upload it on my iPhone, then upload it on the computer so it would actually upload. It was like the weirdest thing ever. And then I went to the Lexington and I brought my camera there, and now it won't turn on. I don't know, man. It sucks. It sucks. Okay, so ghost causing, okay, so we read that one. I'm going to upvote that one. A male spirit ran at me. I'll read that one. So this one is from the user Mark-Aaron with an E. And this is what they said. So here's another story, since I've already added one before. Believe me, I have a load of them. I was standing in my kitchen having a drink, and our hallway was directly to my left, leading to the front door. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw what looked like a figure standing in front of the front door. I quickly turned and saw a man run at me. He looked solid to the point that I thought someone had broken in. It startled me to the point I almost tripped over, but when I turned back around, which was a matter of seconds, he was gone. I could describe exactly what this man looked like. I could describe exactly what this man looked like. He was that clear. Shaggy, dirty blonde, longish hair, slight wrinkles on his face. He looked around his 40s or 50s, slim build, around 5'9" tall, and a very aggressive look on his face with dark, sunken eyes. What stood out to me was that he was wearing. Usually I've seen spirits in clothing which is plain colors. This man had a white t-shirt on with a dragon design on the front, but the dragon was shaped like an S. After Googling the description of the shirt, we found out a company my fiance buys most of his clothes from was selling the exact shirt. Now, why would a spirit wear a shirt which is new? My only conclusion is that this was something not of human origin and was using things which is thought to be familiar to us in a way to lure us in. My previous story on here was the scariest experience, but this was very surreal. Interesting. So what I will say about this is, it's true. I think spirits can definitely present themselves in ways that we can resonate with. And I actually read a story. Someone emailed me and I did like a whole story on my YouTube on it a couple years ago. This person had gone to like a house, and this person and the friend that was with them in the car, they saw the spirit, but the way that they both saw the spirit was different. So one person saw like a younger man with red hair. The other person saw a very old man with beard, reddish hair. But it basically was implied that they saw the same person, just in a different age, which is interesting. And I think that that's always like something that people may not be aware of, is that spirits communicate with us physically as well, physically, emotionally, and of course, verbally as well. But yeah, you can see spirits in different forms for sure. I do believe in that. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It's just sometimes a way it can resonate with us. That's how you know some YouTubers are fake, because that's what I'm curious too. I think that because let's think about this for a second. So people that live in haunted locations or even work at a haunted location, I'll even say this, the Stanley Hotel, right? The Stanley Hotel, I think, is not as haunted as it's sensationalized or amped up to be. And how much or how many times do these, it's not every day someone's having a haunted experience, especially for those that live in a haunted house or work in a haunted place. You know what I mean? I have, when I've done investigations at haunted public locations like a museum or a hotel, there are people that believe in it and there's people that don't. There are people that want to have an experience, work there forever and never have an experience, while others do. So it's how often are these people really having these experiences? I don't think it's a whole lot as the way it's sensationalized to be. And I think that's why when people watch these shows, and I mean, I know I've been on a paranormal show, and I'm so fortunate that we did get something there, right? I think also for me at least personally, my belief is that if a spirit wants to communicate with you, it's going to communicate with you if it feels like the energy is going to be reciprocated in a way. Because if I was a spirit and if it's a lot of energy to communicate to someone, I would not talk to someone that maybe I don't like or I'm not vibing with, or would not care if I did something, I don't know, that's just my theory. Have I ever read about the 8-foot tall woman? I have not read about that. Is it on Reddit or? Okay, actually someone just asked on the comment, how do you know the ghost didn't want to identify as a woman? Okay. This one's an interesting one. It's from Cap McMoist. And I know people are going to hate that username because of the word, but hey, I didn't choose it. It's called Heard a Voice Speak to Me While I Was on the Phone with My Girlfriend. I've never had any paranormal experiences in my life that I can recall or say that are paranormal, but this shook me to my core. This happened a few months ago, but I still remember vividly what had happened. On September 7th, I was alone in my room at around 1:30 a.m. on a phone call with my girlfriend. I was the only one awake in the house at the time. Myself and her, me and her sleep, oh, her, sorry. We sleep together on the phone, so we call every night and still do this every day. We were talking as usual, and obviously nothing scary was so scary eerie. I had my lights off in my room, so the only light was my phone screen right in front of me. My room is pitch black with the lights off as expected, so it wasn't scary for me. But that's not what spooked me. As she's telling me about how her day at work was, I hear a very low voice saying something coming from where my door is, but very quietly to the point where it's almost like a whisper. I couldn't make out any words, but I could tell it was speech. I told my girlfriend to be quiet for a second so I could listen. At first, I thought it was my brother, whose room is right next to mine. But he was already asleep. He does the same routine to go to bed every day. He uses the restroom outside our rooms, turns off the hallway light, closes the room to his door, and turns off his light. This happened an hour before I heard the voice. His voice is not that deep. He's 15 years old, and since he hangs out with his friends over Discord, I know what his voice sounds like through the walls and the pitch of his voice. But this was not him. I could hear it clearly as if it was standing in my room, right past the door. But I couldn't see anything, so I used my phone flashlight to try to see what was there without getting up from my bed. As looking around for a few minutes, I decided it was time for bed, so I told my girlfriend that we should go to sleep. I woke up the next morning as usual, and nothing scary has happened since. Interesting. Okay, so that's interesting. Okay, I'm looking at the comments. Nothing interesting in the comment section. Yeah, you know, but part of me feels like, okay, maybe, what if it was like whispering from like the brother's phone or something? You know, I don't know. Who knows? All right, I think that this one is from That Goth Witch, but I did not read this one. No, I did not. It's called We All Heard a Scream. Hi, Mystic. Yeah, I did. I think I remember you. Yes. I just needed a new hair. I was over the green, which I regret because I think I might need to dye my hair or do something. We'll do a story time on that later. But yeah, I was over the green. I had it for like over a year, and you know. Yeah, I think I remember you. Good to see you again. Okay. So, where were we? So this one's called We All Heard a Scream. So roughly 8 years ago during spooky season, I was staying with my boyfriend's mom and her baby daddy at the baby daddy's house. My boyfriend was away in another town visiting his grandmother and friends. My boyfriend's mom and his two sisters and I were watching a scary movie when we somehow ended up in a conversation about how the house we were in had a history of being haunted. 15-year-old me absolutely loved the occult and witchcraft, especially Ouija boards at the time. You see where this is going, right? I proposed the idea of making and using one, stupid idea, I'd know, and everybody was all in and up for a spooky October evening. Before we progress with the story, I want to say that this is all the story, not me saying that. I've already talked about Ouija boards in the past, but let's continue the story. I don't remember when the season consisted of regarding questions or answers. Session. I don't remember what the session consisted of regarding questions or answers, but there was a very good reason for that. About 15 minutes into our session, we get to talking about our creepy experiences. A woman's blood-curdling scream erupted from the downstairs basement, echoing up the stairs to the living room where we were. The baby daddy was asleep, mind you, and even if he hadn't been, there was no way in hell that he could have produced such a terrifying noise. Not a chance. This scream was not a regular scream. It sounded like a few different things. In one way, it sounded like a woman was being brutally stabbed to death and was in excruciating pain. Specific, I know, but I'm serious. In another way, it almost sounded outwardly straight up demonic. It reminded me of what I could imagine a banshee to sound like if I ever heard one. We all panicked. All 4 of us heard it. It sounded so clear, like a physical person. So much so that we were scared that someone was actually really down there. So the mom went to check to make sure that there wasn't. We said goodbye and ended the session. To this day, I'm still unsure of whether it was a lost spirit calling for help or if it was a dark entity making its presence known. I even speculate still if it's possible that the entity that made that sound was a banshee. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I don't know what that means. I know, Riley. Thank you for the compliment. I don't know really either. I mean, that's the thing, like, you never, I mean, especially for people, I think it takes a long time to kind of like, takes practice to kind of master like what it is that you're talking to. But anyway, let's see. This one is, oh, I think we read this one. Okay, this one's an interesting one. This one is Hawk Wickle Smickle. Okay. All right. I think my bully is haunting me. When I was in middle school, I was being bullied by a strong, I don't like to say bad words. When I was in middle school, I was always being bullied by a strong, heavier set kid. He would push me or steal my bag. When I finished school, I never thought about him again. After about 10 years later, I was invited for a reunion at school. There I found out that he had died because of heart failure. I was surprised, but I wasn't happy or sad. Later that year, I moved into a new house with my wife and 8-year-old kid. It was a beautiful house, but it felt a bit grim. Because sometimes doors are standing open when I definitely close them. Other times the lights will turn off when I know it wasn't my son or wife. One night my son came into my room. He was scared and he was shaking. He said that there was something in his room. I believed him and said that he could sleep with us. The next day I went to shop to buy a cheap pair of security cameras. I put 2 cameras in my son's room and 1 in the kitchen and 1 in the living room and 1 in my own room. The first night, nothing really happened on the cameras, but I did hear footsteps downstairs and I know no one was down there. The second night, I did capture a shadow in the hallway on the edge of the camera in the kitchen. I showed it to my wife. She was scared as hell. The third night, nothing happened, but the fourth night, I saw something I'll never forget. I was looking at the room of my son when I saw that the corner was really dark, so I switched to the other camera, and I was so shocked that I nearly dropped my phone. There was a terrifying shadow figure crouching with his fist on the floor staring at my son. I quickly woke my wife and son, and we drove to my parents where we are now. We are here for 2 days, and I don't know what to do. I'm pretty sure it's my bully who is doing this. He died 7 months ago, and he lived near my house. My son is okay. He did have scratches when we left the house, so I don't know what else to do. Oh my gosh! Well, first of all, I mean, I don't know. I think my question is, why do you think it's the bully? Maybe it's because has the bully been on his mind? I don't know. Because at the same time, it's like, why would your bully direct it towards your son at this point? You know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to invalidate them. It could be their bully, right? But my question is, like, why would they be after your son? They didn't know your son, so why would they be after your son? The second thing is, like, if you do see things like that, you can always go get a cleansing done. My recommendation is, because I remember a while ago, someone asked, we were doing like an interview, and someone's like, hey, like, how do you do research? How do you become more educated on these things? And my thing is, like, you can always go to like a local occult witchcraft shop. There's tons of people there that like do this as a business. They sell books, they do workshops, they have services there. That's my recommendation. Like, yeah, I don't know. Getting someone from there and like, hey, do you know someone that does house cleansings? Did the bully have kids? Yeah, actually, so I do. That's one thing that I've been talking about recently is how people can unintentionally cast a curse on you. Like, you don't need to do a ritual. Like, people think curses are like whipping out candles and like writing out symbols and chants. You can cast a curse. Anyone can cast a curse on someone if like the intention is so strong. Like, have you ever had this moment where you really resented someone, or you really just like been so mad at somebody and you're like, oh, I hope, and like, again, I'm not saying that this is what people should do. I'm just saying there's been moments where I've had friends, I've had people tell me like things like, I've been so mad that I'm like, oh, I wish I got hit by a car or something, right? Like they said things like that or expressed things like in such a way of like out of extreme anger. And that could, like, those intentions right there, you're unintentionally or without realizing putting bad ill or ill intent on someone. That's what they say. You never want to wish ill on somebody because you never know what you can throw out there. So that's that. So yeah, I mean, it could be a curse. Who knows? Yeah, like, it's just, I feel like we've all been to a point where we've been so mad and like the energy we throw out there, you know what I mean? I don't know. Man, these dried mangoes. Okay, just looking for another story. Bear with me. Okay, I found it. Thank you. Oh my God, thank you. So sweet. Thank you. Oh my God. Thank you, Jasper. So kind of you. Okay, I'm gonna drink my water and then I'll read the story. So this is called House in the Forest, and the user is Doris X Sintra. Okay, so maybe I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Hi, I'm Sintra. I'm now 15, and the craziest things happened 4 years ago. I was on the summer break with my siblings and my parents to Sweden. It was beautiful camping with a lot of swimming places. It sounds perfect, but there was a forest. It was kind of dark, in my opinion. Well, we played in the water most of the time, but that was born after like 20 minutes or so swimming. So we go into the forest, and there was a cute little building, kind of like a home, but no one lived there, or so we thought. We looked in the building through a small window. We saw some chairs placed on tables. It was kind of like a party. Was going on yesterday, and they cleaned it up. But there was a man coming out of the building, and he was mad. He yelled at us, "Get off my property." We ran to our parents. Our parents told us to stay away from the creepy little house. But of course, little children don't always listen to parents. So the next day, we all had a huge headache, except our parents, who didn't go to the forest. So myself, my brother, and sister go to the forest at the same time with the same spot, just to investigate. We did not see the man who yelled at us the other day, and the door was wide open. Like the creepy house said, "Come in." That's how we felt. Fearless, we go inside. We yell, "Is someone home?" And we heard a scream like it said, "Come upstairs." When we reached it upstairs, we saw the old man who yelled at us yesterday. He was looking as white as paper, and he fell on the floor. What the heck? We ran so hard back to our parents. Wait a minute. What? What? What just happened? Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you so much, Jasper. What the? So they saw the man, like, pale, and he was falling on the floor and they ran away? Wait a minute. No. Like, also, shame on them from, like, going in there again, you know? You didn't help the man. What if he fell and he was hurt and you guys ran away? And then you trespassed again, potentially. I don't know, man. I'm more like concerned for the man. I'm like, wait a minute. What just happened? Okay. All right. So this one was posted by We're Never Clept. Okay, so the title is called Haunted Former Hotel. This story is about an old house in a rural part of central Massachusetts. It was a huge old house that had originally been half of a hotel. The other half was nearby. For some reason, it was split in half, and the halves moved apart. That always perplexed me. It was a huge 3-story Victorian house with wide porches. How and why the building was split was never explained to me. The house was owned by some of the friends of my parents. They would host parties with lots of people, and the woman would play the piano and sing. There were lots of kids there, and we would run around inside and outside while the adults socialized. My memories of the house are vague, as this was more than 40 years ago. I do remember that the house was huge and had way more rooms than the family that lived there could use. Up on the 3rd floor were several hotel rooms with doors, largely unchanged since it was an operating hotel. The family that lived there openly talked about the house being haunted. I was so fascinated by their stories as a child, and odd things would happen, such as repeatedly finding the telephone receiver out of its cradle and sitting on the table next to the phone. Light bulbs would go missing, apparently unscrewed from the socket and spirited away. The one anecdote that left the deepest impression to me was one that the mother of the family told us had happened to her. One afternoon, she was vacuuming in one of the rooms in the 3rd floor. She turned around and was startled to see a man standing in the room. Motionless and staring at her, she described him as a man in a gray suit, wearing wire-trimmed glasses. He didn't say a word and just stood staring at her. Caught off guard and flustered by the man's sudden appearance, she said the first thing that came to mind, "Would you like a cup of coffee?" He simply disappeared before her eyes. I never understood why someone would offer a cup of coffee to an apparition, but my mother said that the woman explained it as that she was aware that the house had an apparent presence, and that she felt that it was benevolent, and she wanted the presence to feel welcome. I wish I had more details to share. I wonder if the house is still there today. Oh, I kind of like that, being nice to the spirit. I do agree with that. I think that, like, if you show kindness and just more of like that humanity, sympathetic energy to spirits, you're more likely to get activity. Love your voice. Are you sure you're not? Wait, what is that? What is SCP? What is that? I don't know what you're talking about, but now I'm gonna look this up. Well, so what I do read stories on something scary. I don't know what that is. I'm like, wait, did I look up the right thing? Are they like scary animations? Is that what they are? Liddy Daddy? Okay, let me go back. So yeah, I'm the YouTube host for Something Scary. And yeah, so that's me. So that's kind of like the scary animations from that side. I do watch other scary animations though. Nope, they deal with entities within the world. Oh, interesting. I'll have to look this up. Thank you for that. All right, so this one was posted by Night K9. And they, it's called, I Think a Pet is Haunting Me 7 years after her death. Oh yes, the 8 feet tall. So I think I might have read that on a live, like a while back, like forever ago. But yeah, I can look that up. Okay, so this is called I Think a Pet is Haunting Me 7 years after her death. It started about 6 months ago. I remember waking up from a deep sleep to see what looked like the shadowy image of a cat crawling up my leg towards my face. Not thinking anything of it, I absent-mindedly moved my hand to shoo it away, thinking it might have been my current pet. Only later did I realize that there was no weight to the creature. As soon as my hand made contact with it, all I remember is this immense electrical pain running throughout my whole body. I could not think, move, or even breathe. Eventually, the pain stopped and I fell asleep once more. At first, I thought maybe I had my first sleep paralysis experience, and for about 3 months after that, nothing else happened. Until I started seeing it again. It began to become so frequent that I avoided my room entirely, much to my wife's annoyance. Eventually, she decided to do some cleaning and remove some items from our room. Among them was a very special item to me, which may be the cause of all of this. I'll explain below. I had to move out of state to get married, and in the time, my Russian blue cat, Sadie, had to be put down because her cancer got very aggressive. Because I couldn't be there, my parents imprinted her paws into a clay disc and sent it to me. I've held onto it ever since. Soon, I started to see the creature in the storage room that my wife had moved the disc into. I thought it was a weird coincidence, so I decided to move it into another room, and sure enough, the creature started appearing there too. Now, I'm not sure if this is the spirit of my past friend, but to come back 7 years later is very weird. What do you guys think? Could it be her? Could it be a spirit pretending to be her? Is there anything I can do to put it to rest? If it is her, I don't want to cause it any more pain than I have done in my life. My theory is that she resents me for leaving her when I moved. Please know that I want to bring her with me, but she was an elderly and would have had panic attacks if I made her leave my room, which would result in a massive hair loss and eventually seizures. I didn't think she would survive the travel, and I didn't want to put her through that hell. I loved her very much. Any advice is much appreciated. So, what I will say is here's a common thing I've heard throughout, like, just people having hauntings, people giving advice on hauntings. If you have something significant of like someone that's passed on, and this is just like my opinion, you don't have to believe in this, it's totally fine. But what I've been told is when you have something of significance of someone that's passed away or something that's passed away, like maybe like an altar or an ornament or something, and it just like collects dust and it's forgotten about, it's almost like that spirit comes back to like remind the living, hey, like you're not taking care of this. It's supposed to be like a homage to me. Hey, remember me. Hey, like take care of this. So like that's something. So like that's a great question. Why would something haunt you like years down the road? That's probably it. It's probably like, hey, you're forgetting about me. That, or the other thing is too, people tend to awaken and be more in tune with their energy around them way later in life. So it could be that like this cat that loved him very dearly was always around, and he maybe is like now tapping into his own energy and self without realizing it. That could be another thing. That's just another theory I have. So anyway, that's my theory. Someone's like, did you try apologizing? Would really helpful if you forgive yourself. Interesting. Okay, so there's that. I'm gonna like it so I can remember that we read that story. I think like, so here's another thing too, right? I can definitely speak about my personal experience with my cat. So for context, my husband is also very intuitive. And again, like for context, I've gone on like TV and I investigated paranormal places. I used to do psychic medium readings and stuff like that. Now I just more do it for myself, and like I'm more of like I go to haunted locations. But and I also used to do like a psychic development circle for like 10 years. That's how I met my husband. And when my cat passed away, so I had a cat of 15 years, and she passed away, and I could never see her. Like, I couldn't see her spiritually. Like, it's not that I don't think I even tried. I'll be honest. I never really tried. But my husband, he kept seeing her everywhere. And part of me is like, interesting. So I don't know. Sometimes I think there's always a reasoning for those things. I don't know. I know I'm rambling at this point. Okay. Wait, let me go back. Okay. So this one was posted by Ash180817, and it's called Man and Dog I Used to See as a Child. This is kind of a two-part story. My mom and dad used to tell me when I was about 2 to 3 years old. I would tell them that there was a man that sits on the end of my bed with a dog. And my parents would pass this off as an imaginary friend or an overactive imagination, until one day my dad asked me what this man looked like. I would describe him as a very tall man with a thread jacket with brown leather elbow patches. My dad was so confused as how the hell would a 2 to 3 year old know what a tweed jacket is. My mom used to work as a nurse, so she would go get home and late hours, so most of the time I already had been in bed asleep. But one night she came home to me sitting on my dad's lap screaming and crying. My mom asked what was going on, and I would tell her that the man is sitting in the corner and he's angry with me, and I refused to turn my head to look in the corner. My mom sat in the corner and I refused to go to her. She picked me up and put me on her lap in the corner, and I began frantically trying to pull away. My parents were so confused on what was going on and let me sleep with them that night. As I was not calming down, I do not remember this happening as I was so young. Fast forward to me being 14 and 16 years old of age, we moved many houses, so we were living in a new home. I was in my bedroom and my parents were watching TV in the living room. The only way I could set this out is the TV was below a window which looked out of the front of our house. My parents, still watching TV, noticed a man in the window looking in. They could not see any features, just a shadow outline of a tall man looking through the window. Very confused, my parents were like, "What the hell?" Then it clicked onto them that it was actually a reflection of a man standing down our hallway outside my bedroom door. They both turned to get up and look, and as they looked down the hallway, no one was there. They looked back at the window, and the figure had vanished. They called me out of the room and told me what had happened, and I got instant goosebumps. To this day, my parents believe it is my guardian angel, but to this day, I can never recall seeing this man with his dog, only my parents seeing him or telling me about him when I was little. That's interesting. All right, so I think I'm going to wrap up the live. This was fun. I think I want to start doing more like random, just Reddit stories too, ones that are kind of scandalous in a way. Only because I feel like that would be kind of interesting to dive into. But I still want to do scary stories, but you let me know. And also keep in mind that if you do like these, I do post these on my YouTube. I have 3 of them up already. So if you do want to listen to any past ones, you don't have to watch me. You can just listen in the background, kind of like a podcast. Feel free to do that. But yeah, thank you guys so much. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.